Good afternoon, everybody. It's Tuesday, April the 28th. We're almost out of May. We're almost into May and we're almost out of April. Hard to believe. Um, Another Tuesday. It's almost 2:25 in the afternoon on a most beautiful, beautiful day. Any case, before we get into the history of what is called the critical period, and I'll explain all that in our next segment. Um, the post years, the after years after the American Revolution, the post-war years. I want to backtrack just a little bit, okay, and put a finer point on a couple of things that I did mention previously. Uh, it's not Mother's Day yet. Certainly, Mother's Day comes up in May, but I do want to make mention, first of all, of the founding mothers. Okay. There's one in particular, Abigail Adams, that I've spoken about before, and I will speak about her just briefly again today. But there was a book that was put out in 2004. It's called that, The Founding Mothers, and it does look at the women who were right behind the men, behind the scenes. The founding mothers of the United States of America, the women who raised our nation, and it was written by the late Cokie Roberts. She just passed away a few months ago. It was a New York Times bestseller, and it basically gave us a good look at what is called these days social history. It's the history of the United States of America, looking at it from the point of view of down to earth everyday folk. Okay, not so much from the elites and the top people. Although the wives of the founding fathers, Martha Washington, Abigail Adams, and Dolly Madison and the like, they certainly weren't the everyday walking around Americans at the time, but certainly being women, wives, and mothers, they found themselves in the position of being certainly second-class citizens. But in being behind the scenes, they were able to do, like as it says here, like every other generation of American women that has followed. The founding mothers used their unique gifts of their gender: courage, pluck, sadness, joy, energy, grace, sensitivity, and humor, to do what women do best: put one foot in front of the other in remarkable circumstances and to carry on. To carry on. In one exemplary mother, founding mother that I have spoken about already, and again I'm mentioning Abigail Adams. And episode 2 that I have spoken about previously. We're going to see how Abigail, being at home, being in the farmhouse, not only kept the family together, kept her marriage together, kept her family together, kept the farm as an operating enterprise. But in one instance, and you see it in episode 2, she takes the very, very brave, courageous step of saying to the local doctor, "Yes, inoculate me and my children for smallpox. Implant in my blood the live pox, and in the hope that the antibodies will then fight off the disease and make me immune from further possibility of contracting the disease." This is the 1770s, folks. Okay, this is very, very crude inoculation. However, it does come to be that is an actual medicinal counterattack to the smallpox, which rendered the world rendered it useless and wiped out a good population of the world. Um, the New World was very sensitive to these diseases, and they brought smallpox with them, unfortunately, and they infected the Native Americans. We've talked about that before. But in the few minutes that we have here, I do want to talk about, coincidentally, and or not so coincidentally, intentionally, talking about some diseases that played a part in American history. Uh, as we sit here on pause, safely in our homes, hopefully, uh, we can talk about other times and other people, our ancestors, if you will, that that fought off the diseases of their time. As we said, one of them was smallpox, and this inoculation with the live pox was found to be an incredible miracle, an incredible weapon against this disease in America. Um, General George Washington and his troops are going to play a part in fighting off smallpox and putting smallpox down during the American Revolution. Last time we spoke about the Battle of Trenton, New Jersey. It's the state capital of New Jersey. And there, the fort, the barracks, the army barracks that can still be found today. The old barracks, as it's called, is a museum, a military museum. It's the only barracks left standing from that time period, from the French and Indian War, when it was British constructed and British manned, until the battles of Trenton and Princeton in the wee hours of Christmas, 1776, going into 1777. After Washington, after the victories by Washington's troops at Trenton and Princeton, the barracks, the British Army barracks, become Continental Army barracks, and actually it is then turned into a field hospital. And excuse me, not a field hospital. It's turned into a full-fledged military hospital, and the museum today is the only remaining building of this type from as early as the French and Indian War. General George Washington knows that he's going to lose more of his troops to diseases like smallpox and disease like like malaria and yellow fever, which were two mosquito-borne diseases, and I'll talk about them in just a minute. But here we have the Battle of Trenton bringing about a military hospital made from the British military barracks found in Trenton. And it was in the early days of 1777 that George Washington appoints Dr. Bodo Otto, that is a name for you, who oversaw the smallpox inoculations of the Continental troops. Before you would be allowed to train and fully take part in battle, Washington declared that anybody that was going to become a Continental soldier had to be inoculated and had to be quarantined for 14 days. So if you had volunteered for George Washington's army, you had to set aside the first 14 days, and Washington had to have all these troops in abeyance, or offline, until they had finished their quarantine period after their inoculation. But the same procedure that you saw acted out in episode 2 of John Adams by the local doctor in Massachusetts for Abigail and the Adams children. That's the same inoculation procedure. You open up, you put a slight cut in the skin so that you have a blood supply available. It's bleeding a little bit, and then you scoop a little bit of the pox into it, and you now are inoculated. So this way, General George Washington once again knew how to keep his troops alive and intact, racing away, going in the opposite direction, retreating, running, all in the mission to be able at some point in time to be able to turn around and stand your ground and actually fight in a battle with some strength and some position. But he can't do that if his army is sick, and he can't do that unless his army is ready and able to fight. It wasn't only the soldiers themselves, the volunteers, but also what are called camp followers. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in some cases, these were the families of these troops. The young wives wanting to keep their families close to their man, their soldier, and in other cases, these people were, let's just say, companions on the journey. And of course, Washington feared all kinds of diseases coming from those relationships. But that's another time, another discussion. But hopefully you understand that some of those camp followers were women of ill repute, as they used to say, prostitutes, and carrying with them different diseases that you don't want your troops to concoct. Anyway, so we move from Trenton and Princeton and the northern part of the war and the earlier part of the American Revolution. And as we said, at some point in time, the revolution, at a specific point in time, in the late 1770s, going into the 1780s, the war moves intentionally south. And I say intentionally, it was intended by Lord Cornwallis and the British forces to move south because they saw an opportunity, or they thought they saw an opportunity for the British soldiers to cut the colonies in half. They saw loyalists in the South and loyalty to the crown in the South that they didn't see as much in the North. And another factor, again, disease. And it comes in the mosquito-borne diseases of malaria and yellow fever. Specifically, Lord Cornwallis has his troops moving south and then finding out that the southern climate, as we talked about very early on, the southern climate being swampy, tropical, hot, humid, wet, the perfect breeding ground for mosquitoes Most likely, those mosquitoes came over maybe as far back as Columbus's Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria. But nonetheless, the mosquitoes came to the New World too, and they found they found ample opportunities to do their dirty work. Um, it it was said that the Continental Army and Washington's troops had an advantage. They were seasoned, and that word seasoned, uh, to malaria. They had the antibodies. They had the ability to ward off malaria a lot better than the British troops, who were fresh from northern the northern British Isles, northern England, Scotland, not what you would call in the least to be a tropical climate and geography from which they came. Um, Malaria runs rampant through Cornwallis's army, and he can't find a place. It's said that Lord Cornwallis is moving his troops in all kinds of zigzag fashion all over the South. Is he chasing Washington's army? It kind of looks like it until you scratch the surface, if you will. Pardon me, bad pun. But you find out that he's trying to run away from the malaria. The malaria is literally killing his troops. But there's nothing he can do about it. He's ordered to Yorktown in 1780. Okay, going to 1781. Now Yorktown is said to be literally a swamp. There's all kinds of rice paddies. Rice paddies are swamps. It's flooded land in which you plant your rice seedlings, your plants, and you grow them in water. Plants are submerged in water. Wonderful place. It's a resort for mosquitoes. And by the way, something that I guess I've known living on Staten Island, which is there are swampy areas all over Staten Island as well, and lots of mosquitoes. You come to find out that it's the ladies. The female mosquito is the one that bites and sucks your blood, if you will, and then bears the disease that you can be inflicted with. So anyway, it's Mother Mosquito that is doing a nasty job. It's said that General Washington, Alexander Hamilton, his second in command, his right hand man, the Marquis de Lafayette, and the French Navy do the damage against Lord Cornwallis's British troops at the Battle of Yorktown, but Cornwallis's British troops are about 35% at the ready. Almost 70% of his troops are down with malaria. They're sick. They're ineffective. They can't fight. And those fresh troops the reinforcements that were supposed to be coming to him are blocked out by the French Navy in the blockade outside of the Chesapeake and outside in the Atlantic Ocean. They block the British forces, the British Marines, from coming on shore, and they block the supplies. And Washington, Lafayette, and our boy Alexander Hamilton end Act One of the musical with the Battle of Yorktown. Victory, the last battle of last major battle of the war, and the Southern strategy of the British Army and Navy fails because of one of our founding mothers, This is facetious, but there's a recent book talking about this um, from last year called "The Mosquito, Our Founding Mother." It's not for if it not for the mosquito, the female mosquito, and malaria, we might not have gotten the victory at Yorktown, and therefore we might not have ended up with the United States of America. I'm going to talk next about the critical period of the United States, the United States just trying to get on its feet, um, and maybe not succeeding. In any case, I'll see you next. Are you kidding me?